In the wilds of Scotland, a group of well-off holidayers form a party to hunt the most dangerous prey of all: death and booze. The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley is a murder mystery thriller about a group of old university friends who go to a Scottish lodge for New Year's but end up trapped when a blizzard snows them in. Tensions between the group rise and reach a climax when one of them is discovered dead. So yeah, this is on the surface your typical thriller with the same sort of characters we've seen a million times before, but dig a little bit deeper, and it is actually a bit more than that. Firstly, it's told in a non-linear fashion, jumping from the days before the murder, with the party arriving and their first experiences in the lodge, to one of the workers at the lodge in the hours after the body is discovered. Secondly, because of this method of storytelling, Foley was actually able to write this in a way that you don't actually know who the victim is until very near the end. So during the sections before the murder, not only are you trying to work out which of the characters is the murderer, but also which is the murderee, which isn't something I've seen often. I'm not an expert in this particular genre by any means, but I've not seen it before, so I enjoyed that. And thirdly, though the characters start off as very 2D, they do sort of gain a hint of an extra dimension as the story unfurls, and it did feel very much on purpose. So it's a bit different from your generic murder mystery, but only a bit. It's also told from various perspectives. Katie, Emma, Miranda, Heather and Doug are our POV characters. Katie, Emma and Miranda are three of the uni friends and encompass the boring friend, the newcomer and the pretty but petty roles, in that order. Then Heather and Doug both work at the lodge. Interestingly, all of these characters are written in first person perspective, apart from Doug, the only man who is written in a sort of closed third person, which puzzled me for a while, but I think I have an explanation, which I'll get onto later. Firstly, this is a very easy read, it's nice and accessible, perfect to breeze through while on holiday, which is exactly what I did. I did actually quite like the writing decisions I mentioned earlier, the non-linear structure and the added mystery of who the victim is going to be. I mean, it's pretty easy to work out which one is going to die, at least it's easy to guess, but there were quite a few possibilities for the murderer, so it wasn't obvious from the get-go. The setting is great because it's set in Scotland and Scotland's great. And I know it's a cliche, but I'm absolute sucker for the whole like trapped in this location because of a force beyond their control scenario. I love those sort of stories, so I liked the blizzard. I liked what Foley did with the characters and themes. As you would expect from a book called The Hunting Party, there is a connection to hunting. The lodge is home to a herd of deer, and one of the activities that people who stay at the lodge can partake in is actually to go stalk and kill a deer. Specifically, one of the older or injured ones, where it is more of a kindness to kill them than just like, you know, killing a mother or a young one, or, you know. I don't like hunting anyway, but at least they were choosing the ones that were kinder to kill. What I liked about the hunting plotline is that it's not just there, it is actually directly linked to the plot, in the way that the book talks about how killing an animal can awaken something within us, and how these hunts can turn the upper class white bread twits that usually stay in the lodge into something less civilised. Foley definitely wanted to have a conversation about human nature in this, which I have to applaud her for. I'm not saying she did it perfectly, but it was there, which is better than a lot of these sort of books you pick up, you know, 10 a penny just for a bit of fun. I also like that she tried to turn these stereotypes, these characters, into ones with a little bit more depth. For example, Miranda, the beautiful blonde one who's actually a bit of a female dog. I mean, she is all that, don't get me wrong, but we do get other sides of her that reveal a sense of generosity and selflessness and vulnerability that we don't always get with these characters. And it's not the whole I've got to be perfect because I was brought up that way spiel, but something more akin to I've got to be a certain way for my own sense of self-worth, and when I fail, I break down, which is a bit more interesting, so I like that aspect. I also like how not everything was answered or neatly tied up at the end, because the ending, whilst it did give answers for the big plot points obviously, it didn't wrap everything up nicely. Heather and Doug are quite mysterious characters, both with a past that causes them pain and angst. And we only really find out about them in sort of dribs and drabs, and even then not everything filters through, and their plot line was sort of left on an open note. And going back to Doug's POV being the only one in third person, I don't think it's necessarily to do with Foley being uncomfortable or unable to write from a man's perspective, but rather that Doug as a character is one who has separated himself from his past and keeps it separate by drinking himself into oblivion. He has cut himself off from everyone he knows to the point where he seems to have left a part of himself behind. His perspective has that extra sense of separation from the reader, which I think is meant to reflect the way he separated himself from himself. That's what I like to think. And I'll give her a thumbs up even if it wasn't unintentional. The mystery was alright. It's not the best one I've ever read, but I liked it well enough. There were plenty of clues and red herrings, and I didn't feel like it was so random that I could never have worked it out. Actually, there were bits of it I did work out, but not the whole picture. Then again, although I like murder mysteries, I suck at working out whodunit, so others may disagree with me here. There was only one element that I raised an eyebrow at, but I guess I'll forgive it. And finally, one popular criticism of this book is that the characters are all terrible people who don't really seem to be friends. To which I say, well, obviously, that's the point. This book is not about a group of friends dealing with tragedy, but a group of friends who were bound together by circumstance and booze, now struggling to accept the reality that there was nothing real holding them together in the first place. They're not really meant to be great friends. Actually, if they'd met in their adult years, they probably would never have been friends. The writing style is okay, but a little bit of a strain at first. This is probably because so much of it is from a first-person perspective, and the characters do come across as stereotypes for the first section. So even when they do get a little bit more interesting, the writing doesn't really follow them as much as I would have liked, so it remains a little bit sort of flat and cliched. Secondly, yes, the characters are an issue. There are, first of all, tons of them. I feel like we could have cut some of them out without too much change to the plot. And whilst they do get better from being the cardboard cutouts from the first bit, you have to get through quite a few chapters of cliched character traits first. And yes, they improve, but by that much? I'm not sure. Nice idea, I just don't think it was executed as well as it could have been. Is this a great piece of literature? No. Is this a book I'll come back to again and again? No. Would I recommend it to other people? I mean, technically I already have because I gave my copy to my aunt. If you are looking for something to read on holiday, then by all means go and read it. It is quite fun. But if you're looking for something a bit more serious, I'll let you make your own mind up on that. All in all, it took less than a day to read. So you feel like you can't really get that upset with its flaws. And it's clear that the author did try to give this book more depth than you usually would find in these sorts of novels. Did she succeed? At times. Is this the end of the review? Yes. Be gone, all ye people, but before you be gone, let me know what you thought in the comments. I'm going to start doing that now under these reviews. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Somewhere in between. Have you not read it and you're like, why are you asking me this? I don't know. Tell me. Please. And that's it. Goodbye. I am doing Anthem, by the way. That's next week. I have read it. That's on its way. Okay, now you can go. Bye.